Hey everyone, so now we're going to talk about forming your business entity. So this is a very important step. This is really where we get a bit more hands-on than we have in the prior videos. In the prior videos, we've really been getting an understanding around the laws in our state, our scope, as well as what services we're going to do and choose. But now we're going to actually be setting up and forming our business entity. So today we're going to be talking about choosing the correct entity, which is really just a review of what we talked about previously, filing the business and getting an EIN, drafting your operating agreement, drafting your MSO agreement if you need it, and then also key takeaways. And so share this course. We want to help more NPs and RNs build freedom through ownership, especially with the wellness clinic. And so if you use your invite link, you will get a 40% commission on anything they buy in the future with us. So definitely do that. Also, warning, this is the most important video in the entire course, so make sure you watch it. Don't skip through. It's going to help you set up your LLC and your EIN as well as draft your legal agreements. So definitely watch this video. And pro tip, you can watch it at 1.75x speed. That'll help you get through it faster as well as get to taking the steps you need to launch your wellness clinic. So overview. At this stage, your goal is to legally form the business based on prior decisions, right? So you should already know your clinic type, services, and legal structure from the previous videos. And if you don't, please go back and watch those. This step establishes who owns, controls, and operates your clinic. And then any mistakes here are difficult and expensive to unwind later. So make sure that you do this right? For example, if you set up a PLLC when you should have been setting up an LLC, for instance, you're going to have to pay your state filing fees again. And here in Texas, that's $300 due. So you're going to have to pay $300 twice. You don't want to do that. So make sure to set these things up right, especially at this stage. So first and foremost, you want to choose the correct entity. This is ultimately just a review, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail here. So you want to use an LLC when your state laws allows your ownership and services. Use a PLC when a licensed provider must own the clinical entity. And if corporate practice of medicine laws apply and an MSO structure is required, make sure you have that in mind. And then your entity choice must align with your role, state laws, and services that you offer, okay? So again, just a review here. We have earlier videos that you can watch that go to a bit more detail on this, but just wanted to say that before we get into filing the business and obtaining your EIN. So once the structure is confirmed, you want to file your business with the state using LegalZoom or another option. So I like to use LegalZoom. It's set up to where you can go right through the process of everything you need to put in to file the registration for your business correctly. Now, granted, you do not have to use LegalZoom. There's other sites out there that helps you do this, or you can file the business yourself. It's completely up to you. Here in a second, I'll show you where to go in LegalZoom in order to do this. So again, use whatever preferred method that you have. Now, filing legally creates the entity and protects the business's name. So a LLC helps separate your personal assets from your business assets. Now, there are some cases where they can pierce the corporate veil, but ultimately at a high level, this separates the two, which is always going to be a great thing, especially if anything happens down the road. It also protects your business name. And so as we talked about previously with naming your business, this is another kind of filter or check to make sure that your name is available to you. And once you get it, at least in your state, you will be protected as far as someone else trying to take your name. Obtaining an EIN from the IRS has to be done after you form your LLC. So you want to get your LLC papers back to say it has been registered in your state, and then you use those papers to apply for your EIN, and we'll go through that here in a second. And the EIN is required for banking, payroll, and vendor relationships, so you definitely want it, you definitely need it, and there's no reason not to get it because it is free to you, and I'll show you that here in a moment as well. So first, let's hop into LegalZoom here really quickly. Let me back out of here. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go to business and then go to limited liability corporation. And it's going to bring you to this screen. Then you want to scroll down. So when I typically use LegalZoom, I always use the basic. The reason for that is you only have to pay your state filing fees, which no matter how you do this, you're always going to have to pay your state filing fees. And so this way you can go through the screens to set up your LLC without being confused trying to do it yourself. Like I said, if you are comfortable doing it yourself, by all means do so. I don't ever choose pro or premium just because, again, it's saying, hey, we'll get you your EIN and all those things, and you don't need them to do that. And you especially don't need to pay $249 for them to do it. And all these other things are just, to me, not worth it. So I don't use them to do anything else other than take me through the process of the information I need to use to apply for my LLC. Now, once you click into this, it's going to take you through some separate screens. So business name, I just put test there for this. Texas, it's going to ask you your email, just the phone number, and so on and so forth. And so as you go through these screens, I must warn you, they're going to try to upsell you on a lot of stuff. Feel free to skip those things. You do not have to do those things through LegalZoom or at all in a lot of cases. So beware, they are going to try to upsell you because this service is free that you're doing. So they want to make money. But again, once you get it submitted, it usually takes 5 to 7 business days, at least in Texas. Different state takes, it takes a different set of time. And also, again, you're going to have to pay the state filing fees, which in Texas is $300. But in your state, it may be more expensive. It may be less expensive. But either case, you're definitely still going to have to pay for that, no matter what method that you use. So once you do this, you should be getting your registration back. And when you do, the next thing you want to do is file for your EIN. And so what I typically do to find this site is I just go to Google, put in apply for EIN, and then I ignore any website that doesn't say irs.gov. When you find that, which will probably be the third selection on the page, you're going to get taken to this website. It's going to say get an employer identification number. All you want to do is scroll to the middle of this site and click apply for EIN. Now, because it is Sunday today when I am recording this, I will say that this is unavailable. As you can see, it says availability Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So if you click on it right now, it's going to say it's system unavailable. But if it was during the week and during those hours, it will take you through the screens that will ask you to put in the information that's included on your LLC registration forms. So make sure that you have those forms with you when you go through this process. As soon as you get to the end, it's going to give you your EIN. You want to download the document, save it into your Google Drive with your LLC forms so you can reference them later when you're doing things like opening your business bank account or hiring somebody or building out your vendor relationships or applying for your vendors. So make sure you always have those on hand. So that's how you apply for your EIN. And I must say this again, do not use any other service that's telling you that you have to pay to get your EIN. They will try to convince you of that. Do not believe them. You can do this very, very fast and very easily using the information that's on your LLC forms. So let's hop back into the deck here. And there we go. So next thing is drafting the operating agreement. So an operating agreement defines ownership percentages and control. It outlines decision-making authority and financial responsibilities. It clears agreements. These agreements should be clear, to reduce disputes and confusion as your clinic grows. And the key sections include your ownership and voting rights, management authority, profit distribution, capital contributions, responsibilities, and exit provisions. So I wanted to go through all of that before I start to speak about the operating agreement, just so you have a sense of what it is. So an operating agreement is really above and beyond what your LLC puts in place for you. So each state has standard laws, and usually the bare minimum, that comes with your LLC as far as how it is treated, especially in partnership agreements where there's more than one person operating the business or aligned with the LLC. So you want to write your operating agreement because you don't want to be beholden to just the laws in your state for an LLC, for instance. And so when you draft this operating agreement, you want to include things like ownership percentages and control, as well as who has a decision-making authority and how you handle those and financial responsibilities. For example, me and my brother both own our business together. And so we need to have understanding of who owns how much of the business. And then also when it comes to making decisions, what happens if he wants to do something and I don't, right? do we still move forward with the decision because he wants to do it? Do we not? Is it null and void? Like what happens? How do we come to some resolutions, especially when there's only, an even number of people owning the business? And even then with financial responsibility. So especially when you first start your business, the question you're going to have is, okay, how do you handle expenses? Is definitely, especially unforeseen expenses, right? Do you split them evenly? Do someone owe someone else if for whatever reason they have more capital at this point in time to invest in the business? Do you have to pay them back later? Just things like that are going to be very important. Even further, let's say you are making money in your business and you're making profit. Well, at what point can you guys start to pull the profit out of the business? Do you need to wait until you make $10,000 in revenue or $20,000 in revenue or $10,000 in profit or $20,000 in profit for you to pull money outside of the business? And before then, all the money needs to keep going back into growing. Things like that. That's where you write out those parameters or guidelines. So you want to have an operating agreement for that reason. Now, even if you are a single member LLC owner, you still want an operating agreement because potentially in the future, you may bring on partners. You may be looking to grow faster, or you may have an investor approach you that says they want to, help you grow the business and take part in it and help you. And so you want to still have these things outlined to where when those, situations arise, you know how you've decided to move forward. Again, you want these agreements to be clear. And, along with financial responsibilities, I recommend that you also put in, operational responsibilities. So when time comes that there are disputes, non-financial disputes, you know exactly who does what. So for instance, for me and my brother in our business, I handle all of the business type of responsibilities while he runs a lot of the clinical responsibilities. And so in any case that either one of us was not doing what we were supposed to be doing, we can always use the operating agreement to have those conversations and take the personal out of the conversation and focus on the business of the conversation. A lot of times we tend to go into business with people we have personal relationships with. And so this allows for you to not bring those personal relationships into those conversations, which ultimately just make them even more difficult. So key sections, as we said, ownership and voting rights. So that's back to if there's some type of decision being made, who can make those decisions and what happens if there's any disputes around those decisions. Management authority, that goes right back into that as well. Profit distribution, right? Ownership percentages are usually going to dictate profit distribution, right? So if you have $10,000 on the bottom line, is it 50-50? Is it 75-25? Capital contribution. So at the beginning, who's putting up the money for it? And one person might be putting up the financial piece and one person might be doing sweat equity or being in the clinic, operating in the clinic. And therefore you want to make sure you write those things out. So later, let's say you're making $100,000 a month. One person is not like, hey, well, I put up all the money, so therefore I am entitled to more of this than you, although the other person was in the clinic working, or vice versa, right? So responsibilities, like I said, financial or operational, and then exit provisions. So what that is about is, let's say, me and my brother are in business together, 10 years, 5 years, 2 years down the road, I tell my brother, hey, you know what? We got the clinic up and running. I think I want to go out and do something else. I want to exit our agreement. You want parameters in there around how to go about doing so and how that works. Does one person have to buy the other out, and so on and so forth? And so again, operating agreement is very important. In some cases, the bank will want to see it. I don't know how common that is. It wasn't my experience, but I do know there are some cases where that has to happen and you need to have one of these in hand when you go to open up your business bank account or even potentially ask for loans or stuff like that. So again, draft your operating agreement just to give you a sense of what those can look like. This is inside of our paid course. It's available to you if you want to purchase it. And inside of this, we do have an operating agreement template. It is just a template, so it's very high level. But again, it includes ownership, rights and responsibilities, profit and loss distributions, cost sharing, financial responsibilities, decision-making, dispute resolution, all the stuff that we've kind of went over already, just to get your eyes on what that may look like. And so again, Definitely get this drafted. It's only going to help you down the road as things come up. So the next thing we're going to talk about is drafting the MSO agreement if it's required for you in your state for your licensure level. So the MSO agreement, so you want to draft an MSO agreement when ownership and clinical control must be separated. So we spoke about this in the previous video. Below this video, there is even a diagram for the MSO arrangement or structure. And so again, you want to separate the clinical control from the other parts of the business, and you need an MSO agreement to sit in between the two organizations, the PLLC and the LLC, in order to do this structure. So the clinical entity should retain all medical decision-making authority. The MSO should provide only non-clinical management services. This agreement should clearly define the roles of each, the fees, and the boundaries of each. The key sections here are going to include scope of services, management fees, term and termination, compliance safeguards, and separation of clinical control. So I'm not going to go into super detail about the MSO agreement, but ultimately this allows you to adhere to the laws in your state around having an MSO structure. And so inside of this, you want to say, okay, who has the scope of the services? What are the management fees that are going to be paid for this? What's the term and termination, right? So usually these are annual agreements between you and your medical director. And so you want to always revisit this annually if needed. Okay, what are the compliance safeguards to ensure that the clinical side is separated? And then again, pointing to that same thing, separation of clinical control is clearly outlined inside of the agreement. So we do have a template for this as well. Inside of the paid course, I'm going to just flash that up on screen for you. So yeah, as you can see here, we did have a lawyer draft this because this is a more intense agreement. And so as you can see, it looks very lawyer drafted like, but this is a template that you can use and share with your lawyer to review. So you're not having to draft one from scratch because it can get expensive to have that done. But again, it includes all of those areas that we were speaking through. And so again, you want to have one of these in place to separate clearly the responsibilities of the MSO and the PLLC, or the side managing the clinical services. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice or anything like that. And that's sort of why I'm not going into very deep detail on this. Because I have to be careful about what I say in regards to drafting these sorts of things. But again, I want you to know that they exist. I want you to know what they typically include, so you're not doing this with blinders on of any kind. So some key takeaways is, do not form entities or draft agreements until structured decisions are clear, right? So as we discussed on previous videos, you want to know what the laws are in your state before you start to do any of these so you don't waste any money. Choose the correct entity type based on ownership in state law. Draft your operating and MSO agreement that reflect real world operations, right? So really exactly what you expect to happen in your business inside of your clinic, right? If your medical director is going to be reviewing charts 2 to 3 hours a month, that's the type of information you want to be in this. If you are going to be doing only the business responsibilities and your partner is going to be making sure that any clinical operations are happening the way that they need to happen, make sure that's in your agreement, okay? This is not something that's supposed to be just checking off a box. You want it to literally apply to you and what type of operations your business is going to be doing and using, because if something comes up, you want this to be there to settle any type of disputes or anything like that. So if you enjoyed this course, please let us know in the community, or book a call with me if you want to move faster and avoid any costly mistakes around launching your wellness clinic. We help you with entity setup, compliance, medical director matching, legal and clinical documents, EMRs, marketing, and so much more. Okay, so schedule a one-on-one call with me below. I'm more than happy to hop on the phone with you and go through where you are now, where you want to go, and help you launch your clinic the right way. So I'll see you on the next video.